Return from executive session. Deb, please call the roll.
Mr. Agia?
Yes.
Mr. Costa?
Here.
Mr. Hart?
Here.
Mr. Hetzler?
Here.
Mr. Corey?
Here.
Ms. Larrabee?
Here.
Mayor Coogan?
Here. Next item up, discussion and vote to approve FY20 net school spending health insurance is presented by Dr. Matthew Malone.
Mr. Chairman, we got to do the contracts? Top part first? I
Oh.
think that's where I make a motion to approve all contracts?
Second.
Seconded.
I have a motion and a second on approval of all contracts. Any discussion? Again, sorry, I went out of order. Thank you, Kevin. Deb, please call the roll.
Mr. Agia?
Yes.
Mr. Costa?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Hetzler?
Yes.
Mr. Corey?
Yes.
Ms. Larrabee?
Yes.
Mayor Coogan?
Yes. Now, for the committee of the whole, discussion and vote to approve FY20 net school spending health insurance is presented by Dr. Matthew Malone.
So, I'm going to have Kevin do the bulk of the talking, but tonight, we're here to talk about the allocation of health insurance.
I make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Where's the presentation?
Oh, I didn't think he had it.
If you turn to your, if you
I mean,
turn,
it's in the, there's a one-sheeter in the binder with a breakdown, but is there more to it than that?
no, that's it.
That's it?
Oh, so you're just giving us a breakdown of
Yes.
Correct.
what was
So
owed
we-
back in May and what's been given to us since and where we are now?
Correct. So what I provided to you was just an update on net school spending and where we stand based on the J. Sullivan letter from back in February. Last night, the city council appropriated the $1.6 million, so I updated it to reflect the $1.6 million. In addition, I provided a breakdown of a proposed spending plan on the $1.6 million, which includes $530,000 for prepaid tuitions. It includes $250,000 worth of masks, $50,000 worth of gowns, gloves, and wipes, $100,000 for COVID-19 projects at all the at the buildings, and $700,000 to put forward towards the curriculum purchases that were agreed to the other night.
So you're going to need a motion to expend that money?
Yes. So we're asking.
So you're asking for action to expend that money because
Discussion
the
and vote to
contracts didn't
approve.
include some of the things you just referenced?
Correct.
So
I'm asking for an approval of that, correct.
You need approval of that tonight?
Yes, please.
Okay.
You make the motion.
I don't know what the motion was. It was to,
Kevin
I thought it was
made
for the
it.
presentation, but if it's
No,
to
it's,
include what's been recommended for
Superintendent's
spending,
recommending approval of the proposed expenditure 1.653, and
Second.
it was seconded, but I have one comment.
Oh, go ahead.
So, as I've said many times at this meeting, that I think we need to be at 100% of net school spending in the current year. And to the mayor's credit, this 1.653, in my opinion, gets us to 100% of net school spending in the current year, according to the presentation that was given. So I want to commend the mayor for coming forward and submitting the 100% to us, and whatever happens, with the healthcare in the future, we'll get it there, but I do want to give him credit for saying he was going to do 100%. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I yield.
Okay, any further discussion, Tommy?
Yeah, just in regard to the masks, in regard to COVID-19 and all the masks and gowns, what's the strategy on dispersing them? Or how do we know how many masks to give out? Is there going to be a regulation, a set limit, a strategy, or what's the cost going to be
So
in
we've been
regard
asked
to all of
to
that?
purchase a quarterly by quarter, so we have for the next 3 months, the first quarter of what PPE would be for the opening of school. It's based on a formulated calculation, and based on the guidance of what we need that the state's providing. There'll be more information that comes tomorrow.
I could just see it being a runaway cost if it's not somewhat regulated. That's the
We're
essence.
concerned about the same thing, and we're also concerned that we're an urban district. Some other districts are saying they're requiring kids have their own masks. They can't come to the building without masks. We're going to have kids show up without masks. We're going to have to give those masks out every single day. And what we're being told now also, it was going to be that the younger students didn't have to wear masks. Now we're hearing that it's likely that kindergarten, first grade, second grade will all have to be masked at all times.
And so as we hand out more masks and
So
more
these are the-
masks and more masks, that expense falls back to us.
Yes, and this is why we all sit and shake our heads when we go to the state meetings and they talk about all the PPE we're supposed to buy with no money. And when we hear about federal bills, perhaps of money coming that maybe comes. And then people say, well, you should have just used your CARES money for that, but how are we supposed to fund Chapter 70 if we, so there's all sorts of what-ifs, but we're well aware of this. There's a huge push, anti-push back against the state level saying, fine, you want all this, you pay for it.
Okay, I guess that's my answer. I'm not
But
happy.
we're gonna be upfront. That's why we're proposing tonight, so we can purchase these things and have them stored and filed and ready to go, and we'll be prepared for the first three months.
All right, with that, I yield.
Any further discussion? Roll
Yeah, Mayor
call.
Coogan?
Oh, Paul, I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Go ahead, buddy.
No problem, just real quickly, Kevin, Mr. Almeida, the 110,000 of the capital projects, that's getting approved next on the contracts, correct?
That's part of the contracts, yes. Yes,
They're
that is
part of the
yep,
contracts that are on the agenda tonight.
they are, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further? No. Deb, please call the roll.
Mr. Agia?
Yes.
Mr. Costa?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Hetzler?
Yes.
Mr. Corey?
Yes.
Ms. Larrabee?
Yes.
Mayor Coogan?
Yes. Second item up, discussion and vote to approve
Ken.
to award a 5-year special education bus transportation contract, IFB 20-35.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion on the contract? Roll call, Deb.
Mr. Agia?
Yes.
Mr. Costa?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Hetzler?
Yes.
Mr. Corey?
Yes.
Ms. Larrabee?
Yes.
Mayor Coogan?
Yes. I'm not going back to this. Discussion and action needed on the FY 2021 budget is presented by Dr. Matthew Malone.
So, we're gonna need to take action on the, thinking about how we're gonna protect the budget.
Just point of order, Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure that there's any action needed
That's what I
with
said.
that item, but at least not at this time.
Is there any action needed at all? No? Bruce? No.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
okay.
Kev?
Just, I think we're trying our best to make decisions along the way, both in regular and executive session, to try to keep our services in place. I want to commend the administration for working hard on various scenarios so that we can try to minimize any potential layoffs in the school department. I think we're all on the same page with trying to keep at least a level of services from one year to the next. I think we're on track to do that, and I don't think we're going to have the mass layoffs that we're seeing in other districts. So I want to commend the superintendent and the administration for doing what they need to do. I think we will. I know there was some rumors out there whether there was pink slips. I know that some pink slips went out not necessarily for budget reasons, and I want to make sure that that's out publicly. I've said it on a couple of shows that I was on. The pink slips that we're sending out in Fall River are not like in all these other places where we're sending out mass layoff notices, and that's a credit to the superintendent and this school committee for doing the work they've done. So I do think that we're going to have a lot less damaging cuts to our budget moving forward based on our decisions. So I'm quite happy with the way things are progressing, given the nature of what we're facing. So with that, I yield.
Absolutely. Mark?
Just briefly, and I think Mr. Aguirre summed it up nicely, I think for the public who's, paying attention, weighing in, parents who are wondering what school will look like for their sons and daughters come the fall, that's part of the preparation that we're going through now. Superintendent and his team have been offering up proposals to the committee for our consideration. The committee's been doing its diligence, as the public would expect us to do, and that's consider the proposals that are before us, weighing our options. I will say this, the superintendent and his team, as well as Mr. Almeida, included in that, with the finance piece of it, has done a nice job with presenting proposals to this committee for its consideration. So We certainly don't want to sound the alarm just yet, but there are a lot of unknowns about what FY '21 would look like financially, not just for the city, but obviously for the schools. And so, for those of you who are concerned, just know that the effort and the attention is being given to this process, and we're going to do our best collectively to preserve and protect the gains we've made in education here. And I feel confident that given some of those recommendations that the superintendent has put forth, that this committee will have some options to choose from that will keep a lot of those gains in place for our students, for our staff across this district. And so with that, I yield. Thank you.
Okay, Kevin?
So based on what we've all been talking about, the operating budget, where we have a very difficult thing to try to preserve services for our students, we've had to make some very difficult decisions in planning to try to figure it out. I'd like to make a motion that under one of the scenarios presented by the superintendent, that extended learning time is eliminated with the exception of Morton, Fonseca, Laterno, and Talbot, as they are all partially funded by grants. And I'd like to make that in the form of a motion that will leave only those extended learning times that are on grants or under state level 4 status. So
I'll second that.
Any further discussion on the motion, a second? Deb, please call the roll.
Mr. Agia?
yes.
Mr. Costa?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Hetzler?
Yes.
Mr. Corey?
Yes.
Ms. Larrabee?
yes,
Mayor Coogan?
Yes.
Mr.
With
Chairman,
that, is
under
there-
new,
oh,
under
is
new
there
business,
any
Mr.
new
Chairman?
business? Yeah, any new business to come before the committee?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, and I promise that I'll be brief and succinct, but I think it's an issue that needed to be discussed and understand the parameters of the open meeting law and not having prior knowledge within 48 hours, at least you not having prior knowledge. Last night at the city council meeting, once again, the issue of SROs surfaced. It was through their discussion that I learned that apparently there was reports generated that were forwarded to members of the council with respect to the operations and how the SROs were working here in the district. And as a result of that, I made a phone call and was able to at least get copies of 2 reports that I think should go to the entire school committee. And that's the reason why I'm raising it this evening, is because I don't know if I have sort of the latitude to do that. So if it needs a motion, I can, but regardless, I think there's some uncertainty, or at least the SROs unfortunately have been called into question about what they're doing for the public schools and for the city. And to some degree, I think the criticism's been unfair, quite frankly. As people know, and some may not know, that years ago, when the city was in some financial difficulties, the school department chose, and the school committee at the time chose, to take on the salaries of 7 SROs. As a result, it prevented 7 potential layoffs on the city side because they didn't have the financial means to pay those salaries. We took them on because we saw, 1, that we were in a better financial situation to assist, 2, that there was a benefit to having offices in some of those schools on a daily basis, because the work they do in the schools ultimately takes away from potentially what could happen if a call came in and an officer had to respond to the building. So, just so that everyone's clear, the SROs were working. Not only were they working extremely hard, and in some cases, not during traditional hours. As many of my colleagues are aware, there's an MOA signed by both the PD as well as the school department that outlines not only their duties, but what the responsibilities are. And in it, if I can just quickly, in the MOA, I believe it's section B, paragraph 5. Under the roles and responsibilities provides for SROs who are paid by the school department to be used when the school is not in session by the school department. Only when the superintendent deems that there is not a need, they are free to be assigned by the police department. So there's been a lot of questions about, well, why can't we take them from the schools and put them in sector cars? Well, they have a responsibility to meet the needs of our school department. And so after the issue was raised the last time, I spoke with the superintendent, I spoke with Chief Cardoza, and I asked him if there was a need on his end to have those officers in cars, sector cars, filling shifts. The chief at that time indicated that he was not aware of that there was a need for those officers, and that he understood the MOA to be that those were officers that were working in our schools. I then called the superintendent, and he explained that if the chief had an issue and needed them, there was something we could certainly work out and share resources, which I thought was the best plan. Apparently, since then, there's still been some talk about whether or not SROs are actually doing work. So one of the reports that I'm going to ask tonight that you get came directly from the sergeant from the SROs, who unfortunately, I think, and I won't speak for her, but my sense is that based on the level of scrutiny that's been issued, has chosen to transfer from this department. And that's why you heard tonight there'll be a new sergeant assigned to the SRO, Sergeant Joseph Galveo. But Sergeant Kelly Furtado, who, if some of you may be aware, was an SRO, and quite frankly knew the role inside and out, probably better than most, chose the assignment of SRO Sergeant because she knew the role. And quite frankly, I thought she did an outstanding job. I had all the confidence not only in her, but Lieutenant Gouveia and the officers assigned to our schools. But just to give you a flavor for what has been done, and it's in the report, so I won't belabor it, but food distribution sites. Okay, so they provided security as needed at hundreds of school, as now thousands of school lunches have been delivered at the request of principals and SACs and lunch workers. At one point, the SROs were assigned to locations due to severe traffic issues to assist with the flow. So, Mr. Superintendent, I think we're over 300,000 meals.
We're almost at 350.
Almost at 350,000 meals since our schools closes, and our SROs have been an integral part of that process, providing
sites.
security.
10 sites, Mark.
Over 10 sites. They've done welfare checks. They've visited over 25 students. Concerns of students being in harm's way. Teachers checking in, asking that the child be checked in on because they've expressed despair to a teacher. Teacher may have heard some disturbances in the background when they were checking in with students. Child's expressed that they were alone. Many of those took place outside of their contractual hours, and they didn't get paid for it. They worked alternating shifts to get the job done without compensation. There were 9 suicide searches that came in as part of a safety program we have with our computers that they investigated. They went out, and the superintendent mentioned it earlier, 200 students were unaccounted for when our schools closed. So if you're a principal or an educator and you're worried about your students, 200 students were unaccounted for. So it took the work of our SROs, with good old-fashioned police work, to locate them and to provide updated information to the schools to make sure those students were safe. Schoolwork. SROs traveled from Hyannis to Providence. They located a student that had been unaccounted for that was in Phoenix, Arizona, and made sure that child was okay. They provided escorts for teacher parades. They assisted with the distribution of lawn signs for safety purposes for those individuals who were distributing those signs for students who were graduating. They were part of that. That collaboration that we talk about between SROs and schools existed in that endeavor. Missing students, they worked with Claudia Costa to try to obtain photographs or pertinent information to locate several students who had run away during the pandemic, students who may have been at risk. Those are your SROs out there doing that work. Building security, we had a number of complaints, as you're all aware, of trespassing and vandalism at the new school site at Durfee. They were working alternative shifts to provide security, to do surveillance to make sure that wasn't happening. In collaboration with the SROs, they kept the respective school principals apprised of any criminal behavior, any traumatic events such as house fires, overdoses, domestic violence. Our students were at great risk in some cases while they were away from schools. And so this is just a number of items. And I'll close with this. Many of you are aware, but there were also criminal investigations that our SROs were part of that took up their time and diligence. I won't get into what those were, but they were serious in nature, and most of you are aware to some degree of what those entailed. But those investigations are not only time-consuming, they also require a lot of extra legwork. And so I just want to be clear. Since I've been on this committee, I think we've had an outstanding relationship with SROs. I don't think anybody's intention was to purposely diminish that. However, I just think it's been unfair lately that the level of scrutiny that's been given to that particular group of individuals when, quite frankly, it's a resource that comes out of the school department budget. If the city wants to take on $550,000 for 7 SROs, last night at the council meeting, I heard there were potentially 13 vacancies in the PD. Well, you could add another 7 if this committee takes action to forego the expense of the SROs. I think they're valuable personally. I think with them being in the schools, they build that relationship not only with principals, but also with our students, and they were needed more now than ever. And I understand it's easy to jump to conclusions, well, if the school building's closed, then nobody's doing any work. You just heard a synopsis, and you'll get that report. And there was also a follow-up report that was done by Deputy Chief Dupere. I had the opportunity to at least visually look at, briefly, a stack of about 2.5 inches worth of documentation, emails from principals, reports that were generated with respect to the work that was being done. I specifically asked that that not be provided because it had sensitive information potentially in it, and unless it gets redacted, I don't know that it should be in the hands of even us as elected officials. But to give you a taste of it, the work is getting done in the schools. Unfortunately, I heard this afternoon that given what's been going on, the 7 that are currently in that role are possibly considering a transfer out of that unit. I just think it's completely unfair. It was unwarranted. Yes, we have questions, but if you have questions, first understand who the SROs are responsible for, make those calls directly, get that information, and then once you have that, let's all move on. But I'm hoping that after tonight, everybody will get the report, everybody will feel as I do, confident that the work was getting done and that we can move past this because, unfortunately, they're a great resource in my opinion. And again, I'm only one person, but I think the principals would echo that. I think in some cases, the staff and students would also echo the fact that they feel safe and comfortable with SROs. And, it's unfortunate it's turned into what it has. I wish Sergeant Gaveo all the best with his new role, and I look forward not only to working with him, but continue to work with Lieutenant Gouveia, who's the commander of that unit. But, Mr. Mayor, I'll make it in the form of a motion to ask that you request that the reports that I just referenced get disseminated to all members of the committee so that they have them as well for their records. So if they're asked questions by people in the community about what's been done, they'll have that information. Again, that other document, I think had sensitive information in it. And so unless that's redacted, it's probably best suited as an internal document and not distributed. But I felt last night listening to the comments that were made in reference that a report had been turned over to the council, and that's great. They're an elected body. However, this elected body has an MOA with the police department that we fund, and those officers are assigned to our building, and therefore I felt it was important to not only acknowledge the work that they're doing, but also make sure that we have the same information that the council has. With that, I yield, Mr. Chairman.
I had a motion. Did I get a second?
Second.
Yes.
Who seconded it?
Sorry.
Second, Kevin, you got a question?
Yeah, just a comment.
But you did second it?
Yep.
Okay. Go ahead, Kev, sorry.
So I think what Mr. Costa was reading sounds like the letter that was sent by the superintendent 2 months ago related to, the information that was in there is very similar to what was said 2 months ago. At the time, and I'll still say the same thing today, I do think under the crisis that we were in, I think we as a school committee should have voted to allow, not to get money from the city, but allow folks to go over to the city side to help with the pandemic and the issues that were going on. That was my intent at the time. If people want to twist my words and try to change things around, so be it. But at the end of the day, in my opinion, we had SROs that have a duty to do on the school side, but there's also needs on the city side. So my comments at that time were very clear about the need in the city. Yes, the chief said he didn't need them. Okay, you haven't heard one more word from me since the chief said he didn't need them. But at the same time, the city's reducing cars, they don't have enough cars on the street, and all those things. That was my intent. My intent was never to diminish any role of the SROs. I know they're doing a good job. I think they've been much improved from the prior year, helping maintain order in the schools and all that. So I don't want anybody to twist my words to think that I said anything negative about school resource officers. I think they would have been better served to work in the city. The comments that have been made in the past about, well, the superintendent can just work that out with the chief, I disagree with that. Because the superintendent would have to come to this school committee to say, we're going to waive the net school spending requirement to allow that money to go over, just like we did for some other things that we came out and we had to say we're not going to count that towards net school spending. We can make that vote, not the superintendent just agreeing with the chief. But the chief of police at the time, both the middle one and the current one, said they didn't need him. So as far as I'm concerned, it's a dead issue. But I do want to say I don't have any problem with the school resource officers. I think they do a nice job. I just felt they could have done a better job working for the city. With that, I yield.
I'm all set.
Tom's all set? Okay. We got a motion and a second. Deb, please call the roll.
Mr. Agia?
Yes.
Mr. Costa?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Hetzler?
Yes.
Mr. Corey?
No.
Ms. Larrabee?
Yes.
Mayor Coogan?
Yes. I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Roll call, Deb, please.
Mr. Agia?
Yes.
Mr. Costa?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Hetzler?
Yes.
Mr. Corey?
Yes.
Ms. Larrabee?
Yes.
Mayor Coogan?
Yes, adjourned. I'd like to call to order the special meeting of the Fall River School Committee, Wednesday, June 24th. Joining us on Zoom is Paul Hart. Deb, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Agia?
Here.
Mr. Costa?
Here.
Mr. Hart?
Here.
Mr. Hetzler?
Here.
Mr. Corey?
Here.
Ms. Larrabee?
Here.
Mayor Coogan?
Here. Salute the flag. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made, whether perceived or unperceived by those present, and are deemed to be acknowledged and permissible. Do we have any citizens' input? No, we don't. Thank you. Superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight I have 3 items to share. The first of which is the update on Phase 3, 4, and 5 of our school closure operations. Phase 3 is the conclusion of the year. So everyone is aware, we concluded the year on Monday. It's the last day officially of the school year. We are compiling and completing grades as we speak. I feel, and I think everyone will support, the praise that our educators deserve for the work that they did through all 3 phases of closures. Phase 1 in March, Phase 2 from April, and then 3 through June. I can say that right now we are assessing. I know there are questions about connectivity and those things, and I'm working on a full report on connectivity and how student work was assessed and the number of connection and touch points and all of those various factors. So I will have that. We stayed focused on Phase 3, not worried about what the future may be, so we could actually get things done and complete them, which I'm proud that we did. Phase 4 starts now. That is the summer portion of our school closure operations. So what does that mean for Fall River? That means both our summer school, our credit recovery, our extended year programming, and our summer camps. Summer camps are outside organizations that have rented our facilities. They have to write extensive plans that meet the guidance of both the CDC and the either EEC or DESE. Those plans come before Ken and I. We review them, we give feedback, and then if they meet our guidelines, we will approve them. Those are for the camps and outside programs that like to use our facilities. In terms of what we're doing a mixture of both in-person and remote, both extended year programming for special education students, and then 21st century programming, plus our credit recovery and summer school programming. So those will commence shortly, and we will monitor, and I'll provide feedback to the committee in Friday emails or at the next meeting as to where we are with that. Concurrent with Phase 4, we are being told that officially tomorrow, the governor will release his school opening recommendations. Concurrent, or as we wait for that, we have convened the Superintendent's Task Force for Reopening, which is an internal body will be looking at the guidance and then writing the plan for what it is we'll do to meet the guidance for reopening. With that, or coupled with that, we also have a community advisory group who will look at our plan and poke holes in it and give further advice around the operations of what it is that we aim to do. Throughout that process, of course, we will involve the entirety of the committee. I think Mimi's volunteered to serve on the reopening, and I think there was one other school committee member who did, and we're going to be sending out an invite to the first meeting. We're waiting on the guidance, of course, to be released before that group convenes, but our first assignment will be to read the guidance and start thinking about what reopening will look like. As I've stated before, through all the conversations with the powers that be at the State Department, the Governor's Office, and then the state's reopening committee, we believe that there's a continuum from full opening to remote learning, and somewhere in between is where we're going to need to be prepared for the reopening of school on September 1. And the reason why that it's a continuum and we have to be prepared to be somewhere in between is because numbers are going to dictate everything. And I mean numbers, not budget, but numbers of space and number of students who will be returning. Which leads me into the next part of the superintendent's report, which is the remote learning plan. Because our opening, our reopening, and our sustainability moving forward entirely is predicated upon our ability to have a simultaneous operating remote learning platform. So I've included in your materials a one-pager. At the last meeting, we talked about our own people being talented, and I know School Committee Vice Chair Costa agreed with me on that statement and said, yeah, let's take a look at this. So we did. And we're developing what we call Flex Academy, Fall River Public Schools Flex Academy, which will be our new innovative dynamic learning platform for remote learning. Whether we're using it solely as remote learning if there's a spike and schools don't reopen, or if we are open and some families choose not to send their kids to school, which we've been told is going to be quite prevalent across the Commonwealth. So we're working with our teachers union and our administrators union now to talk about the what-ifs of opening and operating both in-person and remote learning simultaneously. We're going to start really fleshing out the bones. I'm going to have a full presentation for you in July as where we are in this Flex Academy to give you more information about it. Frank and his team will put, continuing to work on that, and we'll have a nice presentation for everyone in July. But this you have to understand the nuances in the way that operations will be determined on social distancing, the ability to have proper PPE, and then the ability to deliver a program of study that meets the needs of our students and delivers the state's core competencies. and I'll know more once the guidance comes out tomorrow, but there'll be several other changes and adjustments made in order to accomplish this new way of operating. Again, we'll learn more tomorrow, but I am highly encouraged that the commissioner is a former field commander and understands the intricacies of operating districts, what that means for transportation, what that means for operations, et cetera. And I know that this guidance that will be coming out from the governor will be something that I think will be more prescription than guidance. I think we'll all be in the same posture for next year as we move forward. And again, I'll share that as soon as it comes out tomorrow. I know there may have been one question, Mayor.
Mr. Hart?
I just want to thank you very much for doing this, Superintendent. I agree with it. I know I brought up in the past about the people having the students having Wi-Fi at their home. If they don't have Wi-Fi, I know I've talked to you today about it. I also talked to you in the past, potentially having hotspots, so to speak, or providing maybe Wi-Fi for the students at their home. But I know that's going to be very difficult to do as well. But I talked to you today, and I think you assured me that we're going to be able to pinpoint, now that the schools are closed, we're going to be able to pinpoint the students, the accurate number of students that did not have any Chromebooks or did not do anything with computers or Wi-Fi at their home, correct?
We're going to be able to come close to pinpointing with complete accuracy. I can't give you 100%, but we're going to get close on that. We're going to be able to also really look at the number of kids that got the Chromebooks, who actually used them, who didn't, those kinds of things with the connectivity. So we're going to be able to give you some really better than ballpark figures on actual accuracy and usage. And I hope to have that report to you guys sometime in July.
Okay, and one other thing I mentioned, I think the last meeting of the meeting before, I just want to maybe I know you said that you're going to be talking to some of the other communities and bundle our resources to buy PPE equipment and possibly school supplies. How's that going so far?
So the conversations are ongoing, but to be honest with you, it's not like this cost savings is worth mentioning. So we're doing our best, but it's a great idea, but bulk purchasing really only matters in gigantic bulks. For the numbers that we're purchasing, there's not much of a difference. So we're continuing to, and we're very fortunate that we have great friends in other local communities that we work with on a daily basis. So we're having these conversations. One of the things that, the bulk purchasing around technology, program platforms, et cetera, that may make more sense to us in the long run. But right now with the PE, we're getting pretty much the same numbers.
Okay, look, I know it's going to be a tough budget this year. There's no question about it. So I'm just bringing up any ideas that might be able to save us some money. That's all.
Yep,
So
appreciate
I'll yield with that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
How about this? Tom?
Mr. Superintendent, in regard to the reopening of school and the blended learning model, I appreciate the update on the Flex Academy. That all sounds good. I'm getting just some feelers from parents who are wondering about the blended learning model, of kid being in school for maybe a week or two at a time and then home for a week or two at a time, and people are worried about their jobs and that type of thing. Is there anything we can talk about there?
So these are all what-ifs. We don't know if we'll be a week on, week off. It's one of the options in this continuum, but if we can make the space work, I'd be pushing to open for every kid that we can, and those are the kids that come to school, and if you can't come to school, you're on remote learning. Again, it's all going to be based on the guidelines that come out tomorrow, and we're going to do our best. It's easier when you think about how many kids can we fit in a classroom. And, we're also anticipating some things like, what does this mean for lunch? music programs. You know, we're being told that the CDC is basically saying that instruments moving forward may not be allowed in school because of the infection rates. So we got to take all this in consideration. Let's wait for tomorrow. We'll digest it, and then we'll be prudent in thinking forward of what a plan will be.
Thank you. With that, I yield.
Kevin, please.
So I just had a couple of questions on the new, I don't know if it's just the academy, is that what you're calling it, the Flex Learning Academy?
The Flex Academy, yes,
Yeah.
Fall River Flex.
So where it says like generate usage reports I think that's meaning moving forward. I would just be curious to see if we have any reports on what happened over the last 3 months.
I just told you I was going to have that for you guys in July.
That's part of it.
Yep, usage, everything.
So like the principals of each school maybe giving us updates on how it went, best practices, things, some. I'm
Yeah,
just
I'm
looking
gonna-
for info on how it went.
I'm working on an all-inclusive report. It's going to have qualitative and quantitative information.
Sounds good.
And hopefully, as I said, for the next meeting in July, I'll have that.
The only other question I had was, when you talked about our own people doing it, I do agree we have a lot of qualified people to do some of this stuff, but this is big work to create a big system. Is there gonna be a hybrid of, you know, maybe some places that are already, programs that are already working, or is it all just gonna be?
No, it's a hybrid of programs that we already actually have, plus our current Google operating system. We're going to be able to manage this, do it in a way that we can train people up. You know, let's just pause for a second. 4 months ago, 95% of my teachers could not tell you what the use of Google Classroom or Google Meeting or any of those devices were. Now those things are second nature. And to think about how far we've moved in a short period of time, we're going to maintain what teachers know. We don't want to be an organization that every day you smell something new and go, let's go this direction. That frustrates the hell out of people. We're going to stick with what we have. I think we have a really good model. It's a hybrid of programs that we own with a combination of the framework that we currently have with some new innovations developed within that so we can roll out. For example, one of the things as we get to later in the meeting on the agenda, there's some money for training, and then there's some money for some hardware, because we're going to create, you guys have all been to the second floor conference room in my office that we use. That space with the TV monitor and the cameras and the ability to do what we're doing here, we're going to create one of those centers in each school. So to think about what each school could be doing live with students at home while others are going on in person, we're going to have that ability. That's going to be a new feature of this. Another feature that will be new and unique is the ability to have much more blended, or what we call project-based interdisciplinary work virtually, and how that looks with multiple teachers working with groups of kids. So this is going to be something new. It's going to be exciting. It's going to take some growth, but we don't want to throw out everything that we've been successful with so far. So that's why we're sticking with this model. There's programs and packages you can buy. They're very expensive, but they don't also, you know, you can't go get, I'll give you, like Schoolology is one platform that you can buy for, I don't know how many dollars a kid. You pay a certain amount of dollars per kid in the system, and you can get this platform. The problem is, it necessarily doesn't talk to all of our other operating systems. So therefore, if we're using X2 and it doesn't compute, that's a whole other functionality problem that you have. So we're confident that the architecture that we have in place right now, it communicates to each other, talks to each other, we're familiar with it, and we can do better than we did in the past with it. So we're going to take lessons we learned. We're going to focus on getting this thing up and ready. And the good news is, no matter what happens, we're going to be prepared for any scenario. From as negative as a huge spike in the state getting shut down again, make that switch right back to virtual learning, or even something as a snow day. No such thing as making up snow days anymore if you got virtual online for every kid. And that's going to be a huge disruptive, positive change for the state. And so So we're excited about where we're going with this. I'll have more information for you in July. We'll do a presentation.
Just my last comment, I've heard in other places, not necessarily here, but where the technology infrastructure people can only do so much, and then you have to have the department heads and the instructional folks create some other stuff. And the disconnect, like I said, I don't think it happened here, but the disconnect of like a technology person or a program, like you just said, telling somebody how to teach. You want to have them be individualized as best you can, but I'm assuming that that's all going to be worked through your...
So, I mean, one of the things that we'll be investing time and energy is all those folks continuing to work together. So a combination of consistent standards across the system, then some unique school-level stuff, and then specific content-specific stuff that's outside. So, for example, though, if there are 5 kids from Morton and 5 kids from Cuss and 5 kids from Talbot, they're all in the 7th grade and all need 7th grade ELA, those parents aren't sending those kids to school. They'll be on this model. They'll still be owned by the school, but those kids will be taught by one of our online teachers, if you will. So we're really thinking through how this is going to be much more dynamic and live and interactive than what we did this current year.
Yeah, so the 7th grade teachers would, content specialists or whatever, would create that stuff rather than a technology person. Like
Or
places
the
I've heard
individual
from,
teacher having to teach all those kids.
Yeah.
So all those 15 kids will be taught by one person.
that knows 7th grade
There you go.
curriculum.
That's what we're getting at.
All right, with that, I yield. Thank you very much.
Mimi?
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Dr. Malone, we spoke very briefly last week just about the survey that DESI's making all the districts
Yes.
send out. Did we send ours out yet?
So ours is a 3-part survey.
Okay.
So we're doing students, parents, and educators.
Right.
We've already done the parent part. Tomorrow I'm doing another all-call out in 3 different languages to encourage parents to return, to fill it out, so we can get more information. Then the teacher one will be next, and then the student one.
Okay. On the parental,
But can I just say one more thing?
yes, absolutely.
We're doing this now for a baseline. We'll do the same exact survey, maybe with some couple additional questions, in August, because we need to really measure and understand. And this is what we've been driven by. The state wants to pressure test how many kids we're actually going to be serving. This has huge implications for busing, all those things that we know cost money and are a problem. So we are asking specific questions such as, if you're bringing your kid to school and they get transportation, are you driving them or are you putting them on the bus? I need to know exactly how many families we're going to have on the buses. It's also critically important, and this is one of the reasons I'm doing the call tomorrow, emails and phone numbers. Every single parent in Fall River, please make sure you update your email and phone number with your child's school. The rate of incorrect information is not acceptable. We have to stay connected. I think we have great trust with each other. This is for all of our benefit. We need you to update that information.
Thank you. My next question is, are there questions on the survey, the parental survey, asking them about how it went at home for
Yes.
them? There are those questions.
So the surveys are it's basically 2 parts. 1, how'd it go?
Okay.
And then 2, what are your expectations for the fall?
Okay. With that, I yield. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything further? Okay, you want to finish up with
Yes.
spring and capital?
So the final thing I have is the spring, summer capital projects at Westall, which is where Stone School is located. We have the boiler demolition and abatement completed, and the roof abatement and restoration will be completed within the next 4 weeks. At the RPA building, the boiler demo and abatement has been completed. The new interior entrance to the 3rd floor has been demolished and now construction ready. And the roof testing and abatement begins next Monday at RPA. Again, both of those are MSBA projects and part of a longer-term strategy of roofs, windows, and boilers. The Watson School roof abatement and repairs to structural members began on Monday, this past Monday. The boiler abatement and the demolition is completed at the Watson, and the window removal and abatement began yesterday, which is great news, because one thing I hear every time I go to Watson is windows, windows, windows. And it's, you know, similar to what we hear from Durfee. And if you look on Twitter today, you'll see the new video of the opening windows at the new Durfee building. So we're really excited about that. And then final part is Durfee. If you've driven by, you can't, or gone in, you can't even get a parking spot right now in the construction lot. That's how many workers we have on site. Today I counted 257 workers on site. We have a bus lane expecting pavement within the next 7 days, so you can see the group out there, Resendes, doing all the groundwork on that, on the old main entrance road. That's going to be done. We have the pool work continuing with the time frame expected for a completion this fall. The pool has now been sprayed with shotcrete completely. It's curing. We will fill the pool with water for 30 days. We'll pressure test it with water for 30 days. And once that's complete, we then put the tile in, the membrane, and backfill and add all the other stuff. But this is really great to see them finish today with the spraying of all the shotcrete. The lighting in the gym has been completed, as has the new fans. The Health Wing classrooms are receiving finishing touches, as is the finishing MEP of the fitness center, the wrestling room, and then those locker areas are all getting built out right now, and the new electric room. It's just absolutely amazing to see what that area looks like. Masonry, we're approximately about 35% complete across the entirety of the building. Amazing brick and stone work, as you guys can see. They're doing a great job. The MEP work is approximately 45% completed, so about halfway done with MEP. So that's all the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing that goes up into the ceilings and walls that you don't necessarily see, but all that gets placed, and then it gets tested and it gets inspected before we close those walls up. And finally, the pool mechanical room is complete and ready to accept the appliance and machinery for that. I've done 3 visits in the last 10 days. We got every single kind of tradesperson in the world on site, from riggers to masons to glaziers to tinsmiths to plumbers, electricians. It's absolutely amazing how well our architects did designing the practical use of every single inch of the building. The renovation alone of the field house is probably the most impressive thing that you can imagine. Just how they've used the use of air and light, and how they've condensed all these machinery and mechanizations into small crawl spaces using very intricate rigging design. Very excited. Again, I was there today. If anyone wants to get up to the building, just text me. I'll either meet you or Ken will meet you. We love being up there and seeing what's going on. Suffolk's been great. Our project manager, left field, has been great, and our architects are doing a great job. So just let us know if anyone wants a tour, and we'll work around your schedule to get that done. And with that, there's one piece of item I didn't have yesterday. We have a new SRO sergeant. I'm gonna pronounce it
Joseph
right.
Galveo.
Galveo. And met with him today, and I think we're off to a good start. So I just want to welcome him aboard and let the committee know that he's the new sergeant assigned to the SROs. Galveo.
Anything further on the superintendent's report? Acceptance of donations?
Motion to approve.
Second.
You want,
I'll read it.
you want to read it? Go ahead.
Sure. On behalf, we thank you for accepting a $7,500 donation from Millstone Medical Outsourcing LLC. This donation will be used to pay for a portion of the Stone School playground.
I would like to comment on this. I was approached by Millstone Medical. They wanted to do something for us, the schools. I talked to Kenny Pacheco, and as we're doing some playground work at Stone School, they jumped right up and said they'd be happy to contribute that. We're going to take a picture down there, I think maybe tomorrow. And Millstone Medical is a great new company in Fall River up in the industrial park. Just so everybody knows that we'll be doing it again this year, hopefully. They've offered to pay for the entire Fall River community Christmas concert at Durfee in December. They want to embed themselves in the community. They're expanding their building, and I can't thank Peter, Huey, and his staff enough. This is the kind of partnerships we want. And going forward, they seem like they want to be an active participant in Fall River. Anything further on that? Thank you, guys.
Roll call.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Agia?
Yes?
Mr. Costa?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Hetzler?
Yes.
Mr. Corey?
Yes.
Ms. Larrabee?
Yes.
Mayor Coogan?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, before we proceed, just as a point of order, I'd like to ask the chair to consider, unless it's met with objection, to take the contracts and the committee to the whole after executive session, because I believe that some of those items in executive session may have an impact, I guess, on discussions regarding contract approvals and maybe some of the issues we're prepared to speak about on the agenda. So I'd ask, through you, Mr. Chairman, and I can make a motion if you'd like, or
Please.
unless there's an objection. I make that in the form of a motion.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion to change the order? Roll call, Deb, please.
Mr. Agia?
Yes?
Mr. Costa?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Hetzler?
Yes.
Mr. Corey?
Yes.
Ms. Larrabee?
Yes.
Mayor Coogan?
Yes. Motion to go to executive session?
Yes. At your request, Mayor, I can read off the reasons for the executive session.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
First, will be Mass General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 21A1, to review the open meeting law complaint dated May 30th, 2020, filed by Patrick Higgins regarding the May 27, 2020 meeting of the Fall River School Committee. The complaint alleges the Fall River School Committee violated the open meeting law by not announcing that 4 members of the public body were participating in the meeting remotely. Second, Mass General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to potential litigation relative to the transportation contracts with Tremblay Bus in-out of District 7D van transportation and Amaral Bus typical education yellow buses, as the chair has determined that an open session may have a detrimental impact on the litigation position of the school department. Mass General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining relative to all cafeteria employees of the Fall River school system, represented by the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, Council 93, Local 1118, as the chair has determined that an open session may have a detrimental impact on the bargaining position of the committee. Mass General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining relative to all maintenance employees of the Fall River school system, represented by the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, Council 93, Local 1118, as the chair has determined that an open session may have a detrimental impact on the bargaining position of the committee. Mass General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining relative to all custodial employees of the Fall River school system, represented by the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, Council 93, Local 1118, as the chair has determined that an open session may have a detrimental impact on the bargaining position of the committee. Mass General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining relative to all safety and security employees of the Fall River school system, represented by the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, Council 93, Local 1118, as the chair has determined that an open session may have a detrimental impact on the bargaining position of the committee. Mass General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining relative to all civil service clerical employees of the Fall River school system, represented by the Fall River Department of Civil Service Clerical Employees Association, as the chair has determined that an open session may have a detrimental impact on the bargaining position of the committee. Mass General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining relative to all paraprofessional employees of the Fall River school system, represented by the Fall River Federation of Paraprofessionals, as the chair has determined that an open session may have a detrimental impact on the bargaining position of the committee. Mass General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining relative to all government program employees, including without limitation paraprofessionals, parent workers, and clerks of the Fall River school system that are paid from the federal, state grants, and represented by the Fall River Public Schools government programs, as the chair has determined that an open session may have a detrimental impact on the bargaining position of the committee. Mass General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining relative to all administrators and employees represented by the Fall River Administrators Association, as the chair has determined that an open session may have a detrimental impact on the bargaining position of the committee. Finally, Mass General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining relative to all professional teaching employees of the Fall River school system, including coaches, Title I teachers, nurses, occupational and physical therapists, and specialists in the teaching profession represented by the Fall River Education Association, as the chair has determined that an open session may have a detrimental impact on the bargaining position of the committee. We would reconvene. They may or may not be statements at that time.
Request for executive session, motion for executive session?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please, Deb.
Mr. Agia?
Yes?
Mr. Costa?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Hetzler?
Yes.
Mr. Corey?
Yes.
Ms. Larrabee?
Yes.
Mayor Coogan?
Yes. Recess.